welcome to Manage Engine's free training on OpUtils. I'm Sharon Abraham, your presenter for the day, and I'm a product expert at Manage Engine, and I work with the network engineers in the IPM domain. So we would start with what is OpUtils, where we'll touch base on the product, its capabilities, and then we'll answer the question, how does OpUtils help you overcome modern IT challenges? This question is where we'll be having a very detailed look into the different modules and capabilities in OpUtils and what you can expect out of it. Then we'll see why should you choose OpUtils for your network. So without any further ado, let's get started with chapter 1. What is OpUtils? Well, OpUtils is a comprehensive IP address manager and a switchboard mapping solution. It comes built in with a number of capabilities that helps network admins have a good understanding of the network address space in their modern IP infrastructures. Because let's face it, when I say an IP address manager tool, most of us used to, still think about spreadsheets, and it's not a bad thing because spreadsheets have been effective in the past to manage IP addresses. But when I say modern IT infrastructures, well, spreadsheets don't really make the cut anymore because we need to manage address spaces across subnets, across supernets, across remote sites, across data centers, and some even in cloud and virtual environments. And for that, you need holistic visibility. And for that, you need end to end scanning with real time data insights. That's exactly what OpUtils delivers. This comprehensive IP address manager tool comes loaded with features that simplify IP address management monitoring. So you can have critical metrics like availability and utilization displayed right in your dashboard. And you can also have a comprehensive tool set that gives you, that makes your life easier by helping you carry out day-to-day network tasks with just a click. It also gives granular reports, instant alerting with proactive network address space and switchboard monitoring capabilities. An interesting part of OpUtils is that it is easy to deploy. With system requirements, which I am sure almost any network today can meet, OpUtils can get started with just a few minutes. All you have to do is discover your resources, and voila, that's it. You have OpUtils running in your environment. And again, another best part is that it's affordable, so you do not have to burn a hole in your wallet to have an IPAM solution running in your environment. So with that being said, let's have a look into the capabilities OpUtils offers. So what makes OpUtils the choice for your network? Well, we'll be looking into different modules today, starting with the IP address manager, switchboard mapper, rogue device detector, network toolset, schedules, reports, and alarms, and then we'll finally be talking about the user management capabilities in OpUtils. So let's get started with OpUtils IP address manager. But before I, give you a demo of the different features OpUtils offers in its IP address manager module, let's just, take a moment and reflect on why do we need an IP address manager solution in the first place. Well, yeah, it replaces spreadsheets, but is that the only reason we need an IPAM solution? The answer is kind of complex because when you take different solutions that are available in the market, be it a simple spreadsheet or a distributed spreadsheet or a CLI query tool such as Ping or Traceroute or anything that helps you make sense of your network address space, there are different backlogs or different hurdles to effectively monitoring your IP address space. So an IPAM solution like OpUtils helps you with the following. The first thing, it helps you eliminate human errors because automated IP data collection is no more a luxury. It's something every network admin needs. Because when I say IP address data management, it's usually going to your network, checking for an IP status change, coming back to your tool or a homegrown tool that you use for IPAM, and making sure the change is marked or noted somewhere. And another network admin who comes in, he'll refer to your changes, he'll refer to your updates, and then he'll use them to again allocate IPs or deallocate IPs. Well, do you see the problem here? The problem here is the amount of manual tasks, the amount of time that is required to keep your IP database up to date. As a network admin in a modern IT infrastructure, time is not something you can spend freely because you need to make sure your processes, such as the basic process of keeping your IP database up to date, is automated. So that's a key feature highlight with a tool like OpUtils. You can eliminate human errors in IP data management, and not just that, by automating the process of IP data collection across your different network hierarchies, ecosystems, and remote sites, you get a single source of truth. So you can use the OpUtils IP inventory to track multiple IPv4 and IPv6 addresses across your entire network. Not just that, you can also manage these IP addresses with ease. Because what good is a tool that just tells you what's happening in your network and does not allow you to control what's happening in your network, correct? So that's exactly what the OpUtils IPAM tool does. It gives you not just holistic visibility, but also holistic control over how your IPs are being allocated, used, and managed. So with OpUtils, you can manage IPs, reserve their status for static allocation. You can, even add custom columns in case you want to track custom data regarding a particular subnet or an IP. So the next feature highlight is the DHCP scope monitoring. Because let's face it, there isn't many networks out there that do not rely on DHCP servers. DHCP servers have become integral part of IP address space allocation and management, and it's a good thing too because you get the flexibility of dynamically allocating your IPs and deallocating your IPs whenever you need. However, it is also important to manage these DHCP server scopes. With OpUtils, you can integrate the process of managing IPs in tandem with your coherent or with your correlated DHCP server scopes. This way, you get complete visibility into how your individual IPs are behaving and how these IPs are mapped back in their DHCP scope servers. So, with that being said, it is also important to understand how the IPs are being used because, well, till now we were discussing how the IPs act in the network, how the IPs are mapped with the DHCP server scope. So it is also important to understand how the IPs are being used. That's exactly what you get with in-depth MAC insights capability of OpUtils, because you get to have a detailed look into the associated MAC addresses and the devices, which gives you a good sense of who is using your IP address, where is the particular IP address being utilized, and how are they being utilized. So those three important questions help you clearly understand your network address space with ease. And now comes the most important part. It is the enabling you to stay ahead of network issues because you do not want to get trapped in an IP issue because, well, IP issues can be really minor. It's just two Macs competing for an IP and we call it an IP conflict. It sounds quite simple, doesn't it? But then when this issue is left unresolved, it can cascade into a disastrous network downtime, or it can even shut down a part of your subnet. That's not something you want to happen if you are running a critical environment. So with OpUtils IP Address Manager, you can stay ahead of trivial IP issues and make sure that these issues do not cascade into severe network issues or troubles or problems. So now just let's dive into the product and see how these features are mapped. So right now you are looking at my version of OpUtils. I'm using the demo.oputils.com to access it. So if any of you in the free training would like to try out this with me in real time, I suggest that you open a new tab and open demo.oputils.com and we can explore the product together if you want. So yeah, when I open the IP address manager module, the first thing you can see is the tree view and the donut view. Like I said, OpUtils UI is intuitive. It is quite easy to use. So first, if you want to discover an IP into OpUtils, it gives you flexible discovery options. So you can get started by adding a subnet or importing a subnet from a CSV file or through DHCP discovery. Once you've discovered your IP addresses, the next step is to scan them or to navigate between the different groups of IPs you've discovered. So the tree view and donut view helps you to track IPs with ease. So with the tree view, you can track different subnets and IPs based on their hierarchical groupings. With the donut view, you can track these IPs based on their networking attributes. This can be something like the DNS or the AD or the NIC information that you want to track. So once you are comfortable with tracking IPs, you can make use of the subnet summary tab, which tells you details of all the subnets that are being monitored. So you can see the different subnets, the subnet name, the size, the utilization, and in case if you want to have an on-demand scan of the subnet so that you can have a real-time insight into the subnet, you can do that by just a click in the console. So that's about the subnet details tab. Now let's see how you can drill down to individual IPs. Under IP details, you have a list of all the IPs that are being tracked using OpUtils. So in these IPs, you get to see obviously their MAC addresses, which tells you which device is using which IP. With OpUtils, it's notable that it tells you three different status for IPs. So the first status is whether an IP is used. So when you see a particular IP marked as used, it means that IP is already allocated, or that someone has taken that IP to be statically or manually allocated to a different device. So when an IP is used, obviously you cannot allocate it to a different IP. When the status is transient, it basically means that the IP is in a cool off period and you can choose to reallocate the IP or allocate it to a different device. And then we have the status as available. If an IP is available, it means that OpUtils has not detected it to be associated with any end device. In that case, you can easily mark the IP, whichever device you want to allocate it to. That's about IP details. Now we just saw how you can discover IPs and how you can track or navigate between different IPs. So what do you have to do if you want to manage or if you want to filter these IPs? OpUtils help you easily do that. You'll have to just select the IPs you want to make changes on. And once you do that, you can use the mark as drop down to mark the particular IP as whatever you need. So let's, for example, say you are bringing in a legacy system from one subnet to another. And for this legacy system, well, it's not quite comfortable to use a DHCP allocation to allocate IPs for that. So in that case, you choose to stick with a static allocation technique. So you'll have to allocate an IP from a particular subnet for that legacy system, correct? So taking that IP, you can mark it here as reserved. So marking that IP as static will let the other network admins or the people of your team know that you are using that IP for a particular device allocation. So now that brings the question, what if I have a huge team? What if there are hundreds, or let's just say 10 people in my team who bring in devices, bring out devices, they request IPs, I give them IP. So what then? So that's where the IP request tool of OpUtils comes in. So under the IP details tab, both the operators and administrators, which is the user role in OpUtils, we'll be seeing about that later. But now let's stick with the IP request, all right? So with the IP request dropdown, you can select new IP request. So now let's just say I want to bring in 10 new devices and I need 10 IPs for that. Or, I just simply need a bunch of IPs because I might be bringing in and bringing out devices and I do not want anybody else to interfere with it. So in that case, you can specify the number of IPs, the purpose, the location, department, and if you have a preference for a particular subnet, let's just say you want it for a subnet, you'll just have to mention the number of IPs, select the subnets, and clicking on next will help you create an IP request. So with that being said, all these requests are created by different administrators or different operators in your team. And the admin who manages the entire IP address space can choose to assign the IP request, modify the IP request, or even deny the IP request. This streamlines the process of allocating IPs to different IT admins based on their subnet preference and having a clear track of which IT admin has access to which part of your network address space. This eliminates different hassles when it comes to managing IP addresses. For one, I'm pretty sure most of you would have guessed, it helps you eliminate a major cause of IP address conflicts. Having a clear distinction of who has access to what IP and how a particular IP is being used, and clearly marking if an IP is used statically or dynamically, you can eliminate the cause of IP address conflicts, which can oftentimes cascade into bigger IP issues. So that's about the IP request tool. And now, like we've discussed earlier, OpUtils also has a DHCP server scope monitoring capability that allows you to monitor these IPs in tandem with your DHCP details. Not just that, we also have the IP history tab where you can view how an IP is being utilized over a period of time. We also have the IP alerts tab that helps you to have a track of the different alerts that OpUtils has raised over a period of time. The IP alerts tab, well, it tells you what alert has generated, when was it generated, and it also gives you a little description on the nature of the alert. Now, this is just a very quick and brief look into your into OpUtils IP address manager module. So, but for the time constraint, I'll have to rush you over. So, in case you have any doubts with the um, IP address manager module, I suggest that you take up a free demo with one of our product experts or a panelist. And well, once you schedule the demo, I'm pretty sure they can help you walk through the product and your convenient time and your convenient configurations. Now, let's have a quick recap of what we saw about the IP address management module. We saw about the flexible IP discovery. You can get started with OpUtils in any way you want. You can import IPs manually, or you can bulk import them through CSV files or through DHCP server discovery. And OpUtils gives you simplified IP address tracking, be it through the tree view for hierarchical group-based tracking or the donut view for network attributes-based tracking. And it gives you advanced IP scanning. OpUtils makes sure that the data you see in your console is the actual real-time status of the IPs in the network. Not just that, we also saw about the IP request tool, the historical IP tracking, and the IP alert notifications. And one part we have skipped is the dashboards and widgets part, but we'll be looking at it in the later part of the training today. Now let's have a look into the next module, which is the Switchboard Mapper module. So when I say Switchboard Mapper, well, this time it's not the spreadsheets that pop up, but it's the manual task of tracing cables to the switches and ports they're connected to. That leads to a lot of inefficiencies in modern IT infrastructures. The first thing is the hassle of manual tracking. This is something that is easily avoidable with the Switchboard Mapper module because a tool like OpUtils can ensure that it scans the switchboards and marks the end-to-end switchboard mapping. So by end-to-end, I do not just mean what port is connected to what device or if a port is available or not. With a tool like OpUtils, you can see the complete connectivity details from the switch to the port and the device that is connected to the port, and if the port has a different connectivity configuration. For example, if it is connected to an access port link or a trunk port link, or if it is connected to multiple MACs. So you get the whole picture from the switch to port to the end devices. And it doesn't just stop there because OpUtils is tightly integrated with the IP address manager module. So with the Switchboard Mapper module, you can also see the networking attributes of the end devices that are connected to the ports. This includes details like MAC addresses, the DNS details, and the DHCP details. So, and not just that, we also have the capability to visualize switchboards. So with the option called port view, you can make sure that you have all the details you need with just a mouse over the switchboard visual that you see on your screen. OpUtils also tracks critical metrics. These metrics are important to make sense of how the resources in your network are being utilized, and it also helps you understand how these resources are being mapped to the end devices in your network. And most importantly, it helps you identify switch issues. It proactively monitors your network switch ports and it instantly notifies you through the different channels in case there is an issue that arises with the different switch ports that you are managing with OpUtils. Now let's dive into the product and see how it works. So under the Switchboard Mapper module, you can have a very similar console view like we had in the IP address manager module. We have a tree view, we have a donut view, we have a summary tab that gives us quick insights into all the details that are being monitored and managed regarding the network switch ports. We then have the switches tab. In the switches tab, you can see that we have a list of all the switches. Now, in case you want to drill down to a particular switch, you can do that as well by clicking on the switch you want to view in the tree view. And once you do that, the switches tab again tells you the switch name, the IP address of the switch, the DNS name of the switch, and the utilization details of the different ports in the particular switch. With that being said, if you want to drill down to the ports view, click on port and you can view the list of all the ports that are being managed with OpUtils. As you can see in my console, these ports are color coded. So I have a few rows that have the usual white background, and then I have a few rows that are differently colored. So what are these? Well, like we've said, these are the color codes for the networking attribute of a particular switchboard. So it tells you if a port is connected with a multiple MAC, or if it is a stacked port, or if the device is with a virtual IP. So now, if you want to drill down into a particular port, clicking on that port gives you details like the interface index, the interface name, description, operational status, and so on. Now, for until now, we saw how you can view from a switch to a port and the port details. So how do you view the connected device details? So let me just take this port which has multiple MAC addresses connected to it. Clicking on it tells me all the different MAC addresses that are connected as end devices to this particular port. But for security reasons, obviously, we have hidden the IP address, DNS name, device type fields. However, when you deploy OpUtils in your network, you will be able to see the end device's networking attributes such as the IP addresses, DNS name, device type, VLAN ID, and VLAN name. But how does this help me? Well, as a network admin, it is quite important to have complete visibility into your device mappings. This helps you overcome several challenges with switch ports, including port flapping or looping, or even issues that are due to faulty cables. So whatever the issue that can occur in your network, it is the first step is to have a clear visibility and clear understanding of which switch port is mapped to which device. This helps you troubleshoot your network with ease and with complete control over how your devices are communicating with each other. About the ports tab, we then have the port history tab where you can get a list of switch port utilization over a period of time. We also have the alerts tab where OpUtils logs different issue alerts that might have been raised on monitoring the different switch ports. So this is again a very quick look into the Switchboard Mapper module. And in this demo of that module, we saw how you can get started with switchboard mapping. You get connectivity insights. You can also view utilization metrics like the usage percentage, the available ports or the transient ports. And yeah, I think we missed the port visualization part. We'll just have a quick look into it. So like we discussed, clicking on a port and clicking on port view helps you visualize how different switch ports are connected. So having your mouse over it or hovering over a particular switchboard gives you details on just a view. So this helps you understand how a particular port is being used with just a glance. So that's a quick brief about the port visualization capability. We also saw how historical port tracking works and the alert notifications part. And now comes the rogue detection module. Well, if you ask me, this is probably my favorite part of OpUtils because this module helps you secure your network from malicious agents that easily pass through right under our noses. So when I say rogue detection, I just don't mean, a device which we very well know is running a particular virus or a malware. But rogues can be any device that your user brings in. So, how does that happen, you ask? Well, modern IT infrastructures deploy different technologies, be it BIOT policies or IoT or even shadow IT. Most often than not, network admins are not aware of all the new devices that are entering their network. However, if you take an average sized network, that can be 100 or even thousands of new devices coming in. And it is important that you filter these devices to avoid security mishaps. But how do you do that? That's exactly where the rogue detection capability of OpUtil steps in. Like we've discussed till far in this free training, OpUtils helps you get a completely good overview and insight into your network address space. And network addresses are indispensable when it comes to establishing communication with your network. So when you find a new device in your network, OpUtils discovers its IP and MAC details and displays to you. So this gives you visibility into all the new devices entering your network. But telling you every single new device will be, an alert fatigue because sometimes even you yourself might be adding new devices to your network. So what OpUtils does is that it scans your network, it identifies all the new devices. It then marks these devices as trusted if the device is available in the AD that you are monitoring with OpUtils or that you have added to OpUtils. So if the device is already there in your Active Directory, OpUtils automatically marks this as trusted. Or if it is a whitelisted device, again, there is no need to panic. So OpUtils also marks it as trusted. Now comes the number of devices that are not either in your AD or not the devices you have whitelisted. So these devices might have some malicious intruders in them. So it is important that you inspect these devices. It is important that you are made aware of these devices. And it's important that you are capable of blocking these devices if they are, malicious agents. So that's where the tag capability of OpUtils comes in. You can mark these devices as trusted, guest, or rogue. So in these handful of devices, if you identify any device to be authentic, well, you can mark them as trusted. If you find any device that can have a limited access to your network for a limited period of time, you can mark them as guest. But then if you find any device to be malicious or suspicious, you can mark them as rogue. The capability doesn't just stop there. If you identify a particular device to be rogue, it is important that you have a good idea of how the device is establishing communication with your network. So, like I said earlier, OpUtils gives you the network addresses of the device, the IP and MAC. But not just that, OpUtils also tells you the switch ports through which the device has established communication. Now, you can either go to that switch port physically and unplug the device, or you can use OpUtils to remotely block that particular switch port. That way, you can secure your network from rogue access, and that helps you have complete control over all the devices that are connecting with your network. We then have the capability to inspect in depth with OpUtils. Knowing just the switch port or the IP address details of a device is not enough. So you can use the OpUtils comprehensive toolset to inspect the devices, such as the system details of a device or the system processes that are running in a device or the trace route to identify the device communication pattern. So that's there. And then OpUtils also helps you enhance your security measures with identifying ARP spoofing. Because ARP spoofing can enable different attackers to spoof the MAC address or to spoof your ARP table entries in order to gain unauthorized access into your network. So ARP spoofing alerting is also a part of the rogue protection capability of OpUtils that helps you ensure your network is safe from intruders or malicious agents connecting to your network. Now, without further ado, let's see how this capability works in the tool. So under detection module, you can see that I have already a list of devices that OpUtils has listed under the discovered channel. So how is this list generated? Well, OpUtils continuously scans the different network endpoints I've added, and it adds all the new devices it discovers. Now, if you want to add your own set of devices to this list, clicking on import MAC address allows you to import a CSV file, and you can add these devices based on their MAC address details. Once you've done that, you can view or inspect these devices by clicking on that particular device. And OpUtils gives you information such as the device details, which includes MAC address, system OID, system name, type, system location, and so on. It also tells you the details of connected ports, and it also gives you a list of switches through which the device has communicated. So this gives you a clear idea as to how the device has actually entered your network and how the device is even accessing your network. Once you find that, and if you think, well, this device is obviously a trusted device, you can mark the device as trusted. If you think it's a guest device, you can mark the device as guest by specifying the validity period. So let's say you are having a workshop in your organization and your visitors or your attendees are bringing in their own devices. So it's okay with you if these attendees can access your organization network for the next 2 days of the workshop. So in that case, I would mark these attendees' devices as guest and I would give the validity period as the next 2 days. However, if these devices continue to access my network even after the workshop is complete, well, it might be a cause of alarm. So in that case, what happens is that OpUtils continues to monitor your guest devices, And if these devices continue to access your network even after the validity period has expired, it raises an alarm saying validity period expired. But it's not every device that accesses your network even after the validity period is a malicious agent. Sometimes it can also be a trusted device. So in that case, you can use OpUtils to mark these devices as trusted or extend their validity period, and these devices will remain as guest devices. But in the list of discovered devices or in the list of guest or trusted devices, if you ever find a particular device to be malicious or suspicious, you can simply mark the device as rogue with just a click. And these devices that have been marked as rogue will be listed under the rogue device category. And in this category, if you want to block a particular device from accessing your network, you can remotely do that by clicking on block or unblock switchboard. Select the SNMP credential, give the appropriate community string or the user details, and click on block or unblock port. This remotely blocks the access for that device to your network. So that's about the rogue detection module. And in this module, we saw how you can automate discovering new devices entering your network. Or if you want to manually import it, you can also do that with the rogue detection module. And we saw how you can mark a particular device as trusted, guest, or rogue. We also saw how to identify the networking details and enable remote switchboard blocking with OpUtils. We also saw how the guest validity alerts can be helpful if you want to have an eye on devices that are neither trusted or rogue. So that's about the rogue detection capability. And the next capability we'll be looking at is the network toolset. OpUtils comes loaded with more than 30 plus networking tools that help you simplify your day-to-day network tasks. So tools like Bandwidth Monitor helps you keep an eye on the network traffic. It gives you graphical visualizations of the in-out traffic of critical devices that you would have added to the Bandwidth Monitor tool. We also have the config file manager. Right now, this tool is supported for Cisco device configuration files. You can use this tool to view, differentiate, and take backups of the different startup and running configurations in your Cisco devices. We also have the network monitor tool. The network monitor tool comes in handy if you want to keep an eye on critical devices that are running in your network. So adding these devices to the network monitor tool monitors the availability and response time of those devices in your network. We also have the Wake on LAN tool. Well, Wake on LAN tool helps you simplify the use of vault technology in your infrastructure. So you can use this tool to schedule periodic scanning or on-demand remote booting of the different devices in your network. So using Wake on LAN, you can create groups of devices that need a very similar wake up routine, and you can automate the process of waking up those devices and checking their status in real time. So that's about the networking tools. You can find these tools in the console under the networking tools tab. And if you're new to OpUtils, you can use the demo link to, kind of explore hands-on how these different tools work. And you can also, view the Wake on LAN tools device and grouping settings. Now comes the OpUtils network toolset. OpUtils network toolset is a comprehensive, insightful, centralized networking toolset that helps IT admins to carry out different network tasks right from their OpUtils console. So in the network toolset, we have 6 different groups of tools, starting with the ping tools. We also have the address monitoring tools that helps you get a good idea of your network address space. We then have the network monitoring tools, such as the network scanner and port scanner, which helps you get a good idea of the different components or nodes in your network. And then OpUtils also has a built-in SNMP toolset that is quite comprehensive, and it can help you get a good idea of the different monitored SNMP MIBs, their configured traps, and so on. We also have Cisco tools and a bunch of other tools. So let's have a look at them in the console. So under toolset, I have these different groupings of tools. So if I click on any of the ping tools, I can run different ping scans. So it can be something like, ping, SNMP ping, proxy ping, or even traceroute to understand how my devices are mapped in the network. I can also use the address monitoring tool to resolve MAC addresses or run a DNS resolution, or even for DHCP scope monitoring. An interesting tool here is the MAC IP list tool that will give me a list of all the MAC addresses and their associated IP addresses that are currently mapped and monitored by OpUtils. I also have the network monitoring tools. I think most of these tools will be quite familiar with network admins, because tools like network scanner and port scanner are something that is indispensable in running modern IT infrastructures. So we have both these tools. We also have the System Explorer tool that helps you explore details of the systems, which includes details like process scans and a bunch of other details that are helpful to understand how the end devices mapped with your IPs are behaving. We then have the TCP reset tool and the system details update tool, which helps you to remotely update details of the different systems in your network. So that's about the network monitoring tools. And then we have SNMP tools. Well, these tools are built specifically for networks that are heavily reliant on SNMP nodes, because tools like Nick Browser helps you run quick SNMP operations. And then we have the SNMP graph tool, the community checker tool, and the trap receiver tools, which comes in quite handy when your network is heavily reliant on the SNMP frameworks. We then have Cisco tools such as device scans and device explorer that are built especially for Cisco devices. So these tools help you get a good idea of the different Cisco devices that you're using in your network, including their IP addresses, their memory size, their chassis details, flash memory details, and so on. So along with this, we also have WMI query tool, CLI query tool, forward trap, forward syslog, and syslog viewers. So that's about the networking tool set in OpUtils. Now comes the part of simplifying IP address space monitoring with OpUtils. So in this part, we'll be seeing about schedules, reports, and alerts. So I think we'll start with schedules. So what is this scheduler option, and why do you need the scheduler option? Well, in simple sense, it helps you automate network scanning, because an important part of maintaining a reliable IP inventory is making sure that you have the real-time data and real-time details of the different IP addresses that are being monitored. However, you cannot simply be sitting with your workstation with your laptop in hand and clicking on scan, 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 scan every time you want to scan a particular IP address, correct? So for efficiency's sake, we have the scheduler option that helps you automate periodic scanning. So all you have to do is set up a periodic scan. So I think it'll be better if I take you to the console and let's see hands-on how we can set up a schedule for scanning IP addresses. All right, so clicking on scheduler, I am having different options to schedule scans for the routers I've added, the active directories I've added, and for the IP address manager module. To set up a schedule, I'll click on add task. I'll give a task name. I'll select the subnets that I wish to scan, and then I'll select the duration in which I want to scan a particular subnet. And once I give save, this schedule will be listed as a task under the different modules for which you've set up schedules. So once you've created a schedule, OpUtils automatically triggers scanning for the specified resources at the specified time intervals to make sure the data you see in the console is up to date with your network changes. That's about the scheduler option. We then have the reports option. So reports are an indispensable part of any network monitoring or management tasks that you take on, because reports help you have clear documentation of different changes, of different utilization metrics that have changed during the course of managing or monitoring your network. So OpUtils gives you a bunch of reports under the IP address manager module and the Switchboard Mapper module. It also gives you an audit report in case you want to stay in the know of who's making what changes to what monitored resource with OpUtils. We also have a scheduled reports option that helps you schedule these reports to be triggered to your particular mail ID or a particular site link that you want to store the scheduled reports in. But not just that, you can generate reports at any time you want, and you can download these reports at your convenience with just a click as a PDF or a CSV file. So that's about reports. And then we have the alerts and notification part in OpUtils. Alerts and notification are indispensable to running a reliable network ecosystem because you need to proactively monitor your network for scenarios that might indicate a probable cause of alarm or a probable cause for a network issue. So, configuring OPU rules to enable proactive monitoring is important to stay ahead of these issues. So, for example, let's say I want to, stay ahead of issues with my IP address manager. So I'll click on configure alerts. I'll select the alerts for which I need to be notified on. So let's just say, obviously, I should be notified whenever there is a IP address conflict in my network. I'll select that. And then if I want to be notified whenever there is, a reverse lookup failure or, whenever a subnet is being overutilized, I'll select that as well. So whatever suits your network, you can select that alert scenario. You can select the scenario to be notified either in your email or in syslog or in both. So it is easier to configure a particular scenario, and OpUtils gives you a number of scenarios that might be a cause of concern. So under Switchboard Mapper, we have the same for switchboard specific alerts. And under rope detection, we also have a bunch of alerts that can be when a new system is detected, or when a guest validity period has expired, or when ARP spoofing is detected. So whatever is the issue that you want to be notified on, just select that issue, and OpUtils proactively monitors your network to alert you on that issue. So that's about alerts and notifications. And now comes the user management part. What is user management and why do you need it? Well, to run a network without any hassles, without any hiccups, especially with your IP address space, it is important to clearly define who has what level of access to what network resource, because you do not want to risk network integrity by granting access to users more than they require, and you do not also want to limit the efficiency by giving very stringent access controls. So this is where creating custom user roles and implementing role-based access controls comes in handy. So with OPU rules, let's just say you are okay with sticking with the default user roles. So that will be something like the administrator and operator role, in which in very basic sense, administrator has both read and write access to all the different modules in OPU rules, and operator has just the read access to a particular module in OPU rules. But if you want to customize this, you can play around, create different roles for different team members based on their responsibilities. You can also enable effective user scoping and define role based access controls for your team. So, this helps you specify which operator has what level of access to the monitored resources and how these accesses are executed. Not just that, these configurations of user management, user roles, and role based access control is not just retained when the user logs in or when the user tries to manage something. These configuration is also mapped when user tries to request subnets using the IP request tool. So let me give you an example scenario. Let's say there is a user called, um, let's say Sam. So Sam has access to subnet A, B, and C. And then there is Dia who has access to D, E, and F. So when these two users request IPs using the IP request tools, Sam will only be able to view and request IPs from the subnets he has access to, which can be A, B, and C. Now the administrator who is, you know, viewing Sam's IP request can only grant him IPs from the subnets both Sam and the administrator have access to modify. So this way you can isolate the IP subnets management within your team. This helps you create clear distinction of which user has what level of access to resources. This again helps you make sure that your team is well in control and is efficient and is always informed as to the level of access they have. So that's about the user management process, and that brings us to chapter 3, why OpUtils. So until now in the free training, we've been seeing what is OpUtils, the different modules, how these modules help you, and how you can use some of these capabilities. But now brings the important question. With so much of solutions, with so much of options available in the market, why should you choose OpUtils to be the IP address management tool in your network? So let me just put it in a summary for you. OpUtils is simply powerful. You need efficiency and effectiveness, and you cannot compromise on either. So this is where OpUtils simply powerful capabilities come in. You can get started in minutes. You do not have to have a huge learning curve when it comes to deploying a new solution. You can also have a centralized dashboard and widgets. This means you can get all the crucial data with just a glance. You can also automate network scanning. This highly improves your team's efficiency, it reduces the time consumption, and it reduces the need for manual intervention in running available networks. We also have 30 plus network tools that eliminates the hassle of referring different data sources, or the tango of using different tools to troubleshoot a particular issue, because all these tools are centralized and all these tools are accessible right from your OpUtils console. We also have in-depth utilization reports, instant alerts, and these help you simplify the process of monitoring with easier troubleshooting, and it can also help you to enhance capacity planning by giving you a good look into how different resources are used and what are their utilization metrics. Then these capabilities are not put well here there here some not like that. It is clearly defined with an effective IP address manager, DHCP scope monitor, and switchboard mapper modules. These modules are tightly integrated. They give you holistic visibility, and they help you run advanced IP scanning, IP address tracking, end-to-end switchboard mapping, and simplified DHCP server scope monitoring. OpUtils also helps you to secure your network with the rogue detection module, and it also gives you role-based access control setup that works together with all the different modules in OpUtils. We then have the OpUtils mobile app. Well, having all these capabilities doesn't mean that you will have to be stuck with your workplace. With OpUtils mobile app, all you have to do is integrate your iOS or Android version of the OpUtils mobile app with your on-premise deployment so that you can monitor your IPs from anywhere, anytime, anywhere you like. So that gives you a complete flexibility of how you are managing your IP address space. And that's a very quick summary of OpUtils. Now, once again, because of the time constraints, we were able to cover just a brief look into the different modules with generic circumstances considered. However, if you want to have a look into the different capabilities of OpUtils, you can schedule a personalized live demo with our product experts. This way, I think it'll be easier for you to understand OpUtils in comparison with your current networking needs or in tandem with your current IT ecosystems. So make sure you set up a personalized live demo with our tech experts and have any of your doubts or any of your suggestions clarified there.